What's up, A to Z Sports Live on a Thursday. Going to have a great show this morning talking about an under-the-radar duo that will help elevate Will Levis the most as an NFL quarterback. There's a lot of new around Will Levis. Obviously, just about everything is new besides DeAndre Hopkins and maybe Peter Skoronski at left guard, but a lot of good stuff to get into. Here we go. Make sure you hit that like button. Sorry for being a little bit late this morning. Had some things going on earlier that threw me off track, but we're all set here. Jack, as it's Thursday, so we get the magic bucket to wrap up the show. Talk a little Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears and something the head coach said about those two guys. It gets him all jacked up for what this offense can look like. A little under the radar, something that I think is sliding under the radar for a lot of people talking about the Titans nationally. We'll talk about what is most important for Will Levis and who will have the biggest impact on Will Levis here too. So we got a good show here planned for you guys. Jack, welcome in. Let's get this thing off and rolling.
Absolutely happy to be here on this Magic Bucket Thursday. A lot to talk about, and we're going to have a discussion we haven't really dipped our toes in just yet this off season. It's going to be really fun. I'm excited for all you guys to jump in and share your opinions. But before we do any of that, we have to make sure we're sharing the show on Facebook. Sharing is caring. Share the show to your Titans Facebook groups. Let's bring in everybody that's on Facebook right now. Bring them on in here. Let's grow the show. Let's grow the audience. It's good for everybody. Drop a like while you're on the way in. Next, if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like the show over there, as well as tapping that bell icon at the top of your screen to turn your notifications on so you get an update every time A to Z Sports goes live or posts any type of Titans content to the YouTube channel. You don't want to miss out on any of that. Finally, if you're watching on Twitch, text that Twitch link around to your Titans text groups. I know all of you guys are chatting in there constantly. Maybe you've had some opinions about some of the stuff we've talked about this week and you've wanted to share it with your Titans friends. We'll go ahead and invite them in here so they can give their opinion and we can really fully take the temperature of the Titans fan base this wonderful Thursday morning. Austin, with all that said, let's get the show on the road.
All right, let's get this thing going all officially. Welcome to A to Z Sports, powered as always by the BetMGM app. I'm Austin Stanley. He is Jack Gentry, and we are A to Z Sports Nashville, Nashville's on-demand sports talk network, going live weekday mornings at 8 Central Time on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Links to the show segment by segment on our Twitter X timeline. Also hit us up on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads for more great Titans content. Got to thank our sponsors because they make it happen for us, and they help out all of you, like Wilson County Hyundai. WilsonCountyHyundai.com is where to go to make them a part of your new car buying process. Also, check them out, WilsonCountyHyundai.com in Lebanon. The Bone and Joint Institute, boneandjointtn.org, the region's destination for comprehensive orthopedic and sports medicine care. Farm Bureau Health Plans, get better with Farm Bureau Health Plans at fbhp.com/ATOZ. So, Jack, a lot to get to this morning here on this Thursday. We had OTAs a couple days ago. We'll get into more time or more topics about those OTAs. Spent most of the day yesterday talking about Treylon Burks, DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley, little Tyler Boyd action right there. But today, talking a little bit different. So, Jack, there's so much new around Will Levis that they're trying to elevate Will Levis. And we did hear, I'll go ahead and play this clip from earlier in the week of Brian Callahan talking about the Titans' offseason aggressiveness and what that means about how they feel on second-year quarterback Will Levis.
I think a lot of people from the outside took the aggressiveness you guys had this offseason, the way you spent in free agency, the L'Jarius Sneed trade is another example. It's kind of a sign of confidence in Will Levis and what he can be in year two. When you went back and you watched his rookie year, what did you kind of glob onto when you were trying to find those moments of optimism from what you saw from him?
All of that is true. I mean, we feel like we have added really high-end pieces at positions that we needed it. And we have a team that I think is going to be competitive. And a lot of that has to do with what I saw from Will, what the organization saw from Will in his time as a starter. And the things that you see in Will are the things that you want to see in your quarterback. He's tough. He plays with a ton of passion. It's important to him. He wants to be good. And then you add in the physical part of it, which is he's athletic, he's strong, he can throw it as good as anybody. And you saw the flashes of his ability, all the same things that when he was coming out that got highlighted in the draft as a potential top pick. And for whatever reason, thank God they did. He slides, and he's here in Tennessee with me, and I love everything he's about, and I think he's got real talent, and he has a real ability to be a high-level quarterback in the NFL, and those things are the things that I'm excited about.
So there's a lot to be excited about with Will Levis as the Titans quarterback. And Jack, I talked in pre-show meeting about there's the new offensive line. You have to fix the offensive line in front of Will Levis. You bring in Lloyd Cushenberry to a big contract. You use a 7th overall pick on J.C. Latham. You've got some other pieces to work out the right side of the O-line. Then he's got to have somebody to throw to. So you've got D-Hop. You bring in Calvin Ridley, the best available free agent wide receiver on the market, to go with the best available center on the market. You sign both of those guys. And then you go ahead and add Tyler Boyd, that's going to help out with everything when it comes to this offense, from Will Levis learning the offense to being a reliable safety net underneath in the slot like he has been for Joe Burrow the last 4 or 5 years up in Cincinnati under Brian Callahan's offense. And then you add in Tony Pollard, who is the running back that has kind of been in the shadows of Ezekiel Elliott for most of his career early in Dallas, but has back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons with the Cowboys. He's had some injuries. He's from Memphis. He's got some state ties, but we don't really know what to expect with Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears. So I truly think that an underrated aspect of this Titans offseason is the duo of Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears. And Brian Callahan was asked about this after Tuesday's OTA practice at St. Thomas Sports Park.
Tony and Tajay have such similar skill sets. From what you've seen of them so far, how do they distinguish themselves from one another?
That's a good question. I think Tajay's got a little bit a different route running ability, and Tony's he's a smoother runner. They're both really explosive. Those guys are the ones I'm probably of all the groups that we have, I think those guys are the ones that are the most exciting for me. Just all the different places you can put those guys in the formation, all the different ways you can get them the ball in the screen game, in the passing game. Really, really excited about what they've shown so far. Those guys are two really fantastic players. I'm happy we have those guys.
The most excited that he is with that position group there. So, Jack, what's your initial reaction to hearing that Brian Callahan is most excited to see what they're going to have with those two backs?
Yeah, it's a position that's kind of flown under the radar after big moves at wide receiver and on the offensive line this offseason. Obviously, you bring in a guy like Calvin Ridley and, Bill Callahan, J.C. Latham, the first-round draft pick, and Lloyd Cushenberry, the big money center, have kind of dominated the conversation when it comes to the Titans' biggest offseason moves. But Tony Pollard has kind of been forgotten about, which is tough for me to wrap my head around because, like you mentioned, he's a back-to-back 1,000-yard guy. But Austin, what's even more impressive is, he ran for 1,000 yards and handled 300 touches, 250 carries, 55 catches after breaking his fibula and after going under tightrope surgery the offseason prior. Mm-hmm. So I still think that last season was kind of a get back on track season for Pollard, and he puts up a ho-hum 1,000 yards on the ground, 6 total touchdowns, 55 catches to go along with it. I think that we're going to get a better version of Tony Pollard this season in a Titans uniform because he's had that year to kind of get back to kind of get his sea legs back, like we saw Harold Landry kind of have to go through after his ACL recovery, where he kind of turned it on late. I think that Tony Pollard is going to turn it on big time this season. And he's another weapon for Brian Callahan to figure out how to use. He fits anywhere. That's the best part about him. I mean, he's like a Swiss Army knife. Same with Tajay Spears. Both of these guys can run inside, can run outside, can catch the ball, can block. I really believe in Tony Pollard this season as a Titan, and I'm excited to see how Brian Callahan deploys him within the offense.
Yeah, and so I saw this comment from Darius says Pollard was the first signing in free agency too, he believes. That's correct. Like the first the first reported signing from the Tennessee Titans in March was Tony Pollard, and everybody was like, "What? Huh?" I expected the running backs to sit and wait a little bit, but the running back market went pretty quickly, and the money was bigger than I think most expected. Tony Pollard getting an average of $8 million per year, I believe, is that deal. Not sure of all the details that came out of that, but I think it's an interesting point of how the Titans are changing everything from the Derrick Henry-led everything to a running back group that we don't really know what's going to happen. We don't really know who's going to be the lead back. Are they going to ride the hot hand? And how does that look? And so, Jack, we talked about this a little bit pre-show too. Zach and I got into a discussion where Zach was like, who's on the graphic? You know, when the Titans are playing that Monday night game in week 4 in Miami and they're introducing the starting lineups, you know, which running back is going to be on that starting lineup graphic? I think it's irrelevant. What's your take on that topic there of who's going to be the name, who's going to be the starter that this team is going to kind of run behind?
You know, I'm kind of with you. I don't think it matters a whole lot as to who's on the graphic. I mean, you look at some of the teams that have won Super Bowls in recent years, and none of those guys have a running back that's worthy of being on a graphic of any kind. So, you know, how I truly think it'll play out is I think that Tony Pollard is going to be the number one option. I think when you roll him out there on first and second down for the most of the time, I think that's kind of going to be the lead back, if you want to phrase it that way. But I do think Tajay Spears gets the majority of the third down work, which might be the most important job out of the backfield. You know, you look at Tajay Spears' you look at Tony Pollard's numbers, and you know, I mentioned the 300 touches that he had last year, but I think that he's going to get a similar workload to what he had in 2022 when he was on the rise. I mean, he was coming up when he was able to kind of take over a little bit in that Dallas backfield. You know, 250-ish touches for Tony Pollard, so about 50 less than last year, and 12 total touchdowns in 2022. So I think that that's more of the player that the Titans are going to get coming, you know, have now a year removed from the tightrope surgery, a year removed from the broken fibula. I'm excited about Tony Pollard. And I feel like a lot of people are kind of just glancing over him. I don't want that to happen. I feel like Titans fans should be really excited about the potential of Tony Pollard.
No, without a doubt. A to Z Sports here live on this Thursday morning. So we've got a question for everybody that I think is interesting because there is so much new around Will Levis, whether it's the head coach, the system, the play calling, that's everything outside of the roster. But the newness of the roster of, I think, 3 key things that have been added to the Titans to help Will Levis elevate to that next level of being the bona fide starter in the NFL. I kind of put it in 3 areas: veteran wide receivers, a new offensive line, and this running back duo. So let's ask this question, Jack. What will help Will Levis elevate his QB play the most for the Titans? Is it the veteran receivers, the new O-line, or the running back duo? So what will help elevate Will Levis's quarterback play most for the Titans between those 3 things: veteran wideouts, new O-line, or the running back duo of Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears? We'll talk about all that here in a second. But first, Farm Bureau Health Plans. That is where you should turn for all of your health coverage needs. FBHP.com/ATOZ is the link for us, for you to go get a quote and save money on that health coverage. Don't pay out of pocket for dental or pay out of pocket for vision. Now, they can take care of you with any type of way. They've been doing that for 77 plus years across the entire state for Tennesseans, and they can help you out as well. Zach Bingham saved money and got better coverage when he switched to Farm Bureau Health Plans just about 3 years ago, and you can do the same across the entire state. It's so easy to walk in, get a quote, or you can do it from the comfort of your own home or wherever you are for your convenience by using our link at FBHP.com/ATOZ.
BetMGM.com, it's the place to go to get some skin in the game, and the SEC baseball tournament's underway. We've got the NBA playoffs. Dallas and Minnesota had a doozy last night. I'm sure some of you guys had some skin in that game. But if you're looking to switch sports books, you're looking to change up your luck, you're looking to take advantage of a great promotion, BetMGM is the place to go. Download the app, use our bonus code A to Z Sports, and you'll get up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet misses. It's a great idea. Great plan to start out where, you know, if you want to go big on that first bet, you know, a juicy little a bet, you know, if you lose it, you can get your money back up to $1,500. So download BetMGM, use code A to Z Sports. If you lose your first bet, no sweat. You'll get up to $1,500 back in bonus bets only at BetMGM.
All right, so check that out with BetMGM. Our question here is, what will help Will Levis elevate his quarterback play the most for the Titans? I do want to get to King VC real quick, throwing this in there in the super chat. Lock in, like the show. Lock in, hit that like button for us. We're slacking on both Facebook and on YouTube this morning with the like department. So go ahead and hit that for us right there. So what will help Will Levis elevate his play the most? Is it the veteran wide receivers, the new offensive line, or the running back duo we've talked about, which I think is a little under the radar with the assets that the Titans have for Will Levis in Tony Pollard or Tajay Spears? Jack, to the chat you go. What's everybody saying right now?
O-line's the popular answer early. David, Jeff, Darren, Mark, Lion, Hoshi, Dr. David. I mean, we're 10 in and we still haven't got anything different. Ashley, all of the above, says Rob. O-line. Coaching is what Corey says. That wasn't one of the choices, but that's an interesting answer. O-line from Eric. Jeff says O-line. The veteran receivers from Curtis. O-line from Steve. American Toff says yes. Let's say new offensive line from Darius Horton. The whole damn lot of them. O-line from Ross, DeMario, Richie, and Ron. Let's see. Veteran wide receivers from Titans, Kyle, but Chris and Tyler say O-line, as well as Rashid. Like I said, says wide receivers. Healthy mix of O-line and wide receivers. O-line, giving him time to look through progressions. And Lloyd Cushenberry being a member of that offensive line, who's a very cerebral player we've come to figure out. And he's going to help Will Levis with some of those reads. So wide receivers from Christian. Adrian says O-line. O-line from King VC. Wide receivers from Carpet King and Flooring. Austin, at first, my first thought was offensive line, because that's the area where you have the most room to grow. But looking at what Brian Callahan's done in his coaching career, I mean, he's been able to work around some really bad offensive line play in Cincinnati. Joe Burrow, even when Joe Burrow went down, Jake Browning is my favorite stat to use when talking about Brian Callahan. Jake Browning led the NFL in completion percentage behind a shoddy O-line, having to jump in the middle of the season. I don't think, obviously it's important for any quarterback to have a capable, competent offensive line. But I'm not so sure that's necessarily, the biggest emphasis that Brian Callahan puts on his offenses, is having a, sound O-line play. Look, Bill Callahan's going to help. J.C. Latham, Cushenberry's going to help. Hopefully you figure it out at right guard, and Skoronski's already looking bigger and better. So, with all that being said, though, I think it's the wide receivers, because when you get the ball in guys like Calvin Ridley's hands, I mean, what happens after that is up to, who knows what's going to happen after that, I should say. Having a guy like Calvin Ridley being able to, quickly get separation outside, turn it up down the field, make contested catches, get in the paint, which has been a big theme in Brian Callahan's offseason plan. That's what's going to help Will Levis the most, in my opinion. Having an offensive line is great. And it's nice that he's going to have an extra second and a half to throw the football this season. At least we hope, knock on wood. But to me, the biggest difference maker is going to be the wide receivers. Tyler Boyd's going to be able to get open on third downs. He knows where to be in this offense. He's going to help the other wide receivers with any questions they might have, as well as Will Levis, because, Boyd's got, plenty of experience working with Brian Callahan since 2019. And any questions that Will Levis might have about where guys should be, timing of things, all that, Tyler Boyd's going to be there and help. So I think his intelligence within the system and experience within the system is a massive asset. But Calvin Ridley's talent on the outside is a huge difference maker. I mean, we're talking seriously about a Titans team that's going to have 2 1,000-yard pass catchers. So that's what I'm excited the most about. I'm excited about the opportunity of that. And, Calvin Ridley's just ability with the football in his hands after the catch. I think that there's a lot of yards that the Titans left out on the field last year when it comes to yards after the catch, and Calvin Ridley is going to make up for it this season.
Man, you put up a good fight here, because honestly, my answer to this question is for sale. Like, I am willing to be sold on what the correct answer of this is, because look, everything's important, right? Like, I think when we're asking, what will help elevate Will Levis's quarterback play most, and you talk about everything around him, literally the O-line, the pass catchers, and the running backs, you can make a case for all of it. I think the most interesting point that you brought up, Jack, is the fact that the Bengals have had bad offensive line play for Joe Burrow's entire career. Now, they've paid Orlando Brown Jr. a lot of money to not being that good of an offensive tackle, not being what he's being paid as an elite offensive tackle. They had vets at wide receiver and dynamic playmakers in Chase, Higgins, and Boyd. They had Joe Mixon, who was a do-it-all running back for the Bengals there. So they were able to survive around that. I still think my answer has to be the offensive line, though. Because when I'm looking at the difference of what the O-line can be from 2023 to this year for Will Levis, I think the offensive line has the most ground to cover and has had the most opportunity. Well, I think the wide receivers. I think adding the additions of Lloyd Cushenberry and J.C. Latham are greater than the additions of, let's say, Calvin Ridley and Tyler Boyd.
Wow, you think so?
Yes. I think Cushenberry and Latham are two high-level acquisitions. Calvin Ridley is obviously a high-level acquisition. Tyler Boyd is not. And this is just my opinion on Tyler Boyd. I don't think he's got a lot of gas left. I think he's going to be fine. I think he can be a good third option. I just don't think he's what J.C. Latham is. Tyler Boyd's not going to play or have J.C. Latham's going to have a way bigger impact on this offense than Tyler Boyd. Do you disagree?
I mean, yeah, the left tackle,
right?
Whether he's good or bad, is going to have a bigger impact on the offense.
Yeah, I think it was a higher level acquisition than Tyler Boyd, who signed after the draft for up to $4.5 million. Yeah. J.C. Latham's going to get $4.5 million on a signing bonus.
Yeah, I hear you on that. I'm just from my answer. I think anytime you talk about the Tennessee Titans having the best and deepest wide receiver room in the history of the franchise, at least since they moved to Tennessee, then the answer has to be wide receivers. I mean, if it's that good of a group, and you're talking about an offensive line that's just trying to get back to average, so they're still going to make some mistakes. They still got some holes up front. I'm not as sold on the offensive line yet as I want to be. I need to see it in action, and I need to see J.C. Latham. I need to see him able to play the left tackle position against speed rushers. Still a little concerned about that. I do believe in him as a player, and under Bill Callahan's tutelage, I think it's going to be perfect for him. But just because the Titans have the best wide receiver group that they've ever had, that just has to be my answer. And the running backs, we haven't talked about the running backs, and Curtis says the running backs are going to be last. I think an underrated part about Tajay Spears and Tony Pollard for Will Levis, why I think they're great for Will Levis, is because, Austin, what's Will Levis? What's the biggest red flag when it comes to Will Levis's play?
I would say there's two.
Okay.
Some accuracy issues or decision making where he just puts the ball in harm's way, and overall recklessness with his running.
Yeah. So turnover worthy decisions or plays.
Yes. Yeah. Fair. Good.
I totally agree. But Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears out of the backfield provide kind of a dump off guy to where Will Levis may not have to tuck it and run. Or instead of forcing a ball into DeAndre Hopkins double coverage and just letting him go up and be great, you've got Tajay Spears to your right or Tony Pollard to your left. You swing it out to them and you trust them to make a guy miss, pick up 8-9 yards, probably a first down. And Will Levis doesn't have to put the ball in harm's way. I think that's an underrated part about having both of those running backs with you is it prevents Will Levis from getting too crazy with the football because he'll always have an option in the flat to dump the ball off to. So that's an area it's more of an intangible thing. Like you can't put stats on that and how valuable that is. But I think it's a great match for a quarterback like Will Levis, who's still young, still might not trust what he sees, and kind of instinctually wants to make a big play every play. It's okay to dump it off because you got running backs who are able to turn it upfield and pick up a solid chunk of yardage in desperate times.
Yeah, I think there's more to that. And so I'm going to update this YouTube poll because I did put up a YouTube poll earlier about this question that we're asking is what will have the best impact on elevating Will Levis's play as the Titans quarterback between the veteran receivers. You've got the new offensive line and also the running back duo of Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears. So that poll as of right now. The new O-line is running away with it. 67% of the YouTube poll, 66, 67% is saying the new O-line. That's a big gap. Yesterday, Jack, didn't we have a pretty even poll there?
Yeah, all three options were right
all three
around
options
30%.
were like 40% might have been the highest on that one. Veteran wide receivers are at 28%, and the running back duo of Pollard and Spears is only 6%. So just 6% of people think that the running back duo is going to elevate his game the most. I'm going to make the case for why I think you can choose running back in this conversation. So I'm not saying I am, because I've already picked offensive line, which is the most popular answer. Jack, you went with the wide receivers, but I'm going to make the case for why I'm not going to be upset at anybody who thinks that Pollard and Spears can have that big of an impact. But real quick, the Bone and Joint Institute is where you should turn for all of your injury needs. boneandjointtn.org, the region's destination for comprehensive orthopedic and sports medicine care. Whenever you get hurt in life, you have to know who you can trust and where you can turn to. It's happened with me. Hurt my knee. Something was bothering me back in the spring, still in the spring. It kept getting worse. It wasn't going away. I tried to rest. Wasn't going away. Had to go to the Bone and Joint Institute, book an appointment, in and out, 30 minutes. And I've got some tendonitis in my patella tendon in my left knee. So tomorrow, start my physical therapy route here to try to get this thing right and learn how to deal with that moving forward. And the Bone and Joint Institute is so implemented in helping me get through all of this with this injury and not making it worse, because real quick, it can get worse in a hurry with some tendonitis issues that you're going to have to deal with for a while. So boneandjointtn.org, that is their website. Again, so easy to make an appointment. Just go to their website, click the make an appointment button. You type in what's bothering you. It sorts the experts for those type of injuries. And then you get to make an appointment to fit your calendar with all the different experts right there, boneandjointtn.org.
BetMGM.com. Download the app. New users sign up with our bonus code A to Z Sports, and you'll get up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet misses. Tons of stuff going on right now. There's action every day. MLB, NBA, NHL, college baseball, you name it. It's happening right now. Get in on the game with BetMGM, and don't forget to use our bonus code A to Z Sports to get up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet misses.
All right, so Jack, we asked the question, and that is, what will help Will Levis elevate his quarterback play most for the Titans between veteran wideouts, the new O-line, or the running back duo? You say the veteran wideouts. I said the new offensive line. The chat on YouTube, the poll is 65% offensive line. I'll make the case for why I think you can answer the running back position, because you brought up the good point of the Bengals having bad O-line play, right? With Brian Callahan and getting around that.
Mm-hmm.
Their wide receivers have been good, but Jamar Chase and T. Higgins have dealt with injuries, significant injuries with some IR stints the last couple of years. Where I think the biggest difference for Will Levis, like I think let's not look at the Bengals, let's look at the Titans, because the Titans have been so predictable with their personnel because of Derrick Henry that I think Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears removes any predictability pre-snap. When Derrick Henry's on the field, lined up in an I formation, there's a better chance they're either going to run the ball or play action pass. If Derrick Henry's not on the field and you bring in one of these other backs like Tajay, Dontrell Hilliard, or the other backups to Derrick Henry, it's been so much of a pass type set, right?
Gosh.
Like what happened? Let's go back to the first snap of the 2023 season for the Tennessee Titans. Do you remember what happened? It was in New Orleans. The first offensive snap for the Titans last season. Jack, do you remember how it went?
I was in the car on the way back from Cincinnati. I know where I was when I was watching.
I'll tell you what happened. 1st and 10. Amani Hooker recovers a fumble in the opening kickoff. Remember that? Jeff Swain, false start. 1st and 15 on the 25-yard line. Derrick Henry runs the sideline. Tajay Spears comes into the game.
It's a pass.
Yes, pass. 1st and 15, pass. Game over. Like, game plan out. Derrick Henry, irrelevant. Did not touch the ball. right there. And Luman says you lost a yard. So now you're at 2nd and 16 if that's the case. I don't remember exactly how it worked. I just remember that 22 was on the sidelines. And so right now with Pollard and Spears, you don't have to change anything. Like, you can run, you can pass, you can do every type of run you have in the playbook. You can do any type of pass in the playbook, regardless of who's on the field. So I think that alone, for the running backs being versatile and not tipping their hand, allows them to help Will Levis that much more.
So we both kind of named, like, unquantifiable, not stats, but just things that these running backs will do just by simply being out there with Will Levis. I think we both know what they can do with the ball in their hands. Austin, I'm going to try and sell you. I'm going to try and sell you. I'm going to try and get you to come over to the right side. Okay, come to the light. Veteran wide receivers. All right, just picture this. Take the Titans out of it. Say you've got a quarterback that's about 20th best in the NFL. Okay. I think that's probably fair when you talk about what Will Levis has done up to this point. Around the 20th,
very high.
Around the 20th spot, probably closer to 25 than 20. But what's going to help that quarterback succeed the most? An average offensive line or a top 10 wide receiver trio? To me, it's obvious. An average offensive line can only do so much for quarterbacks to help elevate their game. They're still going to be getting hit. There's going to be Sundays where they're seeing ghosts. But if you have a top 10 wide receiver trio, those guys are going to be there every Sunday. Those guys are going to be ready to perform. It's all about you getting the ball in their hands. Let them do the rest. And it's easier to get the ball in these guys' hands because they can create separation at the line of scrimmage or even downfield like Calvin Ridley has the potential to. So, in my opinion, that weighs more than an average offensive line, which I think Titans fans would agree with. An average offensive line would be exceptional heading into this year after what the Titans have gone through lately. So, top 10 wide receiver trio outweighs an average offensive line. That's why the answer is veteran receivers.
It's a good pitch.
Come on over. Water's fine.
Something I'm not going to change my answer because, hey, Rashid says, let me sell you on the O-line. And I'm open. Rashid, bring it. You don't have to sell me. You got to convince Jack to come over to the offensive line answer this.
Man, I'll tell you what, though. You really did make me miss Dontrell Hilliard. God, I miss him so much.
He's a good player. Remember that year that Dontrell Hilliard tied for the lead in touchdown catches for the Titans?
I mean, him and Dante Foreman were just rotating. They were always scoring touchdowns.
Yeah, I guess maybe Hilliard was second in receiving touchdowns behind AJ in 2021. But look, I do think whenever I hear that type of pitch, I remember Brian Callahan's words at some point this offseason of, you win early, you throw early. If you win early on the outside, you throw early, and the offensive line doesn't have to block as long. And I'm a believer in that. And I think when you look at what the Titans attempted to do last season with Tim Kelly as the offensive coordinator, a lot of long developing concepts. Like they aired last training camp, they threw the damn ball deep more than I've seen any training camp before. And I didn't think of it being a foreshadowing to the Titans really having long developing route concepts that hurt the offensive line that was already a turnstile. But I think win early, throw early is going to be a big deal. I think let's play the comment again from Brian Callahan from the running backs from this week about what they can do and help with the win early, throw early too.
Tony and Tyjae have such similar skill sets. From what you've seen of them so far, how do they distinguish themselves from one another?
That's a good question. I think Tyjae's got a little bit a different route running ability, and Tony's he's a smoother runner. They're both really explosive. Those guys are the ones I'm probably of all the groups that we have, I think those guys are the ones that are the most exciting for me. Just all the different places you can put those guys in the formation, all the different ways you can get them the ball in the screen game, in the passing game. Really, really excited about what they've shown so far. Those guys are two really fantastic players. I'm happy we have those guys.
You know, he kind of mentioned the passing game more than he mentioned the running game, right? So win early, throw early. There's the screen game that he mentioned, quick out of the backfield, route running ability. I think that's very interesting. So I think the running backs, they're distant third in our poll right now on YouTube, but I think they're absolutely deserving to be in this conversation.
Yeah, they belong. There's no doubt that they belong. I want to pull up a comment from Darren. I think I've got him here.
Okay.
Darren says, O-line, average or not, after being that bad, any time will make a world of difference. Totally agree, Darren. You're totally right. But could you make an argument that the wide receiver group was dead last in the NFL last year? I think you can. Because I think they were. I think the Titans had the worst offensive line, the worst group of wide receivers in the NFL last year. 32nd, bottom of the barrel.
I disagree. Jack, I know this off the top of my head for some reason. I think it was because I saw a graphic of the last 1,000-yard receiver for every franchise. Jack, do you know, and I remember this. This is just my weird brain coming into play here in my benefit. Do you know how many teams had at least one 1,000-yard receiver in 2023? Out of 32, how many teams had at least one 1,000-yard receiver in 2023?
18.
Low.
14.
I said 18 was low.
18 was low. Okay. Thought you meant like go low. 23.
24. 24. So 75% of the NFL had a 1,000-yard receiver. And then you look at the teams that didn't, and you look at those receivers. The Giants. You know who the last 1,000-yard receiver was for the Arizona Cardinals? DeAndre Hopkins. His face was on there twice. And so, do you know who was on there for the Packers? Devontae Adams twice, and the Raiders. So, but you look at the New York Giants. You're the last guy that had 1,000 yards for the New York Football Giants. Don't think too hard.
So yeah, OBJ.
Boom. You're the last guy that had 1,000 yards for the New England Patriots. Don't think too hard either.
The Giants and the Patriots, you could make a case for.
Yeah, Julian Edelman. He's been retired for a while. He was the last guy to do it. So, they've had some really bad receivers. And so I think the Titans offensive line, the Titans left tackle has given up more sacks than a lot of offensive lines in their entirety the last couple of years.
Yeah, I believe it was 29 sacks last year.
29 sacks
from the left tackle spot alone. Just that one spot gave up 29 sacks. God, it's so bad.
How about this reference? Lou Man says Amani Toomer was the last guy for the Giants to go over 1,000 yards.
That's a good call.
Man, Amani Toomer. I was playing with the Giants and Amani Toomer back in the PlayStation 2 days. So, it's like the Titans upgrade at the O-line for me is more significant than the upgrade at wide receiver.
Man, I disagree, but I do think that I would probably lean closer to the fence if the Titans had stability on the right side of the O-line. We still don't really know what to expect out of right guard and right tackle this season. So there's still one side of that offensive line that's kind of tricky. And now you got a rookie at left tackle who's really going to have to hit the ground running, when the season starts, especially against some of these pass rushers the Titans are going to be facing. But just because that right side is still kind of in limbo, in flex, I just don't feel as good about it. I think being an average offensive line would be a success. I think that would be overachieving for this Titans offensive line in 2024. Because the wide receivers are a top 10 unit, like I mentioned, because they were probably in the bottom 3 of the league last year. With the offensive line, I think that they made a bigger jump this offseason than the offensive line. And, we talk about yak yardage. There's nobody on the Titans roster that was capable of making moves after the catch. I mean, Chris Moore would catch a ball 50 yards down the field and just fall down. NWI, he doesn't have that extra gear, that second gear. DeAndre Hopkins at his age, he can make a couple guys miss, but he resorts to that same little pivot spin move to slip one tackle and then shortly be tackled right after. D-Hop's great, but the yak ability isn't what it used to be. So I think that that's an area where the Titans have a lot of ground to make up in, and I think they've found a couple of answers this offseason in helping them close that gap and get back to where they need to be as a group of wide receivers. So I think that they're a little bit better. They came from just about the same spot last year, both being pretty bad, offensive line and wide receiver, that is. And they're going to be bigger for Will Levis this season.
Yeah, so MB has a comment that, it's a good point, but it's not necessarily the conversation that we're having. He says, Jack, you're looking at the parts. Bill Callahan is the major acquisition. The whole O-line will improve. We're not including Bill Callahan into this conversation.
Coaching wasn't a part of it.
Yeah, we're talking about the parts. That was kind of the vacuum that we're having the conversation within. So, but yeah, I mean, Bill Callahan and I, props to Compton and Lawan and their great interview with Brian Callahan. They covered a lot of things on Bussin' with the Boys, but learning more about that sled, hearing Peter Skoronsky on Tuesday talking about the sled and the story, Jack, of J.C. Latham, the day after he got his ass kicked by that sled where we were there for rookie minicamp, about 5 p.m. later that day, J.C. Latham was out there doing some sprints and then just happened to kind of wander over to that sled, just kind of checking it out, staring it down. And then Brian Callahan, watching from in his office, just sees J.C. Latham out there by himself going full J.J. Watt and getting after the sled out there by himself. And I think that's a pretty, cool thing to hear. And that J.C. Latham is that type of person that wants to go out and hit that sled when he thinks nobody's watching at 5 o'clock on a Friday night after rookie practice. So, I think obviously Bill Callahan's a big addition, but when we're talking here, I think you got to go with what this offensive line's capabilities are. Jack, do you have anything to respond to that before we get to the next comment?
No, I just think that coaching is the obvious number one answer here, and we left it out because of that.
Yes.
With the coordinators that Will Levis already had to deal with, Tim Kelly, and Mike Vrabel coach team that didn't really cater to Will Levis at the quarterback position. Now he's got a group of coaches that, sure, Bill Callahan on the offensive line is going to help, but Brian Callahan knows what he's doing. I mean, he's worked with some Hall of Fame level quarterbacks in the past, and that's going to make a huge difference for Will Levis this season. It's going to be the biggest difference for Will Levis this season. There's no doubt about that. So everybody's saying coaching. I hear you. It's definitely number one. But when we're talking about the parts, like Austin just said, I'm still staying wide receivers.
All right, another comment that I wanted to get to here. Demario says, I'm cool with Daniel Brunskill. You can have top talent at every O-line position. I'm more concerned with right tackle. Yeah, I don't think you should be cool with Daniel Brunskill as your right guard if that's the case. I'm not trying to give away too much, but I don't think Daniel Brunskill will be the right guard when the season begins. I think somebody else, I've said this back when Sam and I had our show right before, I believe it was when we were out there at Prince's Hot Chicken, right before the tournament bracket went. We said, who's the Cinderella free agent signing for the Titans this free agency back in March? And I said Sadiq Charles. I think Sadiq Charles is your Cinderella signing. I think he can play at right guard, and I do think that Sadiq Charles has a chance to win that right guard job over Daniel Brunskill and brings up Dylan Radins. Titans Kyle brings up Dylan Radins as a potential right guard option. Absolutely. I definitely think those two guys and Radins and Charles could be your right guard, and then I don't know who the backup center is right now, but Daniel Brunskill could fill that need if you need it. But I don't think Daniel Brunskill will be much on the field this year for the Titans. And it's a good thing if he's not. It's a bad thing if he is. Nothing personal about Daniel Brunskill.
Over the last 2 seasons, the Titans have had some true liabilities across that offensive line. But at that right guard position right now with Charles, Brunskill, and Radins, you feel okay at least. I think okay would be as far as I would go. You feel okay with any of those three probably jumping in at some point or another in the season. Like they're not going to be a Dennis Daly on the inside. I think that either, all three of those options are, solid. Hopefully you just hope that one separates themselves in training camp.
Yeah. I saw, Skoronsky looks massive. Yeah. Peter Skoronsky looks phenomenal. I mean, he looks great for that is what, and I think Brian Callahan said this pretty close to word for word. that Peter Skoronski looks like you want your NFL guard to look. I was like, all right, good. That's a good thing because Daniel Brunskill and Aaron Brewer and some of these other guys, and even Skoronski after the appendectomy last year, did not look like the interior offensive line prototype that you need in the NFL. And so we'll see how that continues. DeMario says that ESPN has Dylan Radins as projected start at right tackle. I wonder what they see or what they know. I think it's just you got to have somebody there. Like I think it's the Titans probably list Radins as a tackle, and so they probably put him there with NPF coming off of an injury. So I think NPF is still rehabbing something. I think, and Just Smash says Dylan Radins looks very muscular now too. I think looks like Dylan Radins has done a good job this offseason of getting his body right. I don't know what NPF looks like, haven't seen him. So I think the good thing is you're going to have some of these pieces in Radins and NPF that have been underwhelming in their first couple of years that have a chance to wipe that clean with Bill Callahan and be a legitimate factor.
Are we expecting Radins to kick inside at guard though this offseason?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's kind of like a little bit of a shuffle. How can the whole cliche of the offensive line talk is like, how can you get your best five out there? Right? What's your best five? Right? Why J.C. Latham played right tackle for Bama this past year is because they had Proctor, a 5-star freak left tackle who started at left tackle as a true freshman, to get your best five out there. So. Yeah. Are your bet is Radins in your best five, or NPF and Radins in your? If NPF and Radins are in your best five, Radins is a right guard, NPF's your right tackle.
Mm-hmm.
If Sadiq Charles is in that best five, where are Radins and NPF? I think if Charles is in the top five, then the other guy is the right tackle and he's your right guard.
Yeah, this kind of just came to me, but I think Dylan Radins is the Traylon Burks of the offensive line unit. They're going to make him learn all the positions. He's already played damn near all of them. So, and he's going to have to get in where he fits in. If it's right guard, sure. If NPF takes a little while to get back and you need help at right tackle, plug him in over there. So I think that he's kind of going to be coached similarly to Traylon Burks by this new coaching staff. And Bill Callahan's going to have him feeling comfortable at multiple positions and not just dial in on one. That's what I would guess.
Yep. A to Z Sports here live here on this Thursday. Let's go ahead and get to the Magic Bucket to wrap up this Thursday show. Magic Bucket time here as always. Let's get it. As always, shout out to Wilson County Hyundai. Make them a part of your new car buying process. Go see them in Lebanon and say hey to Payne Bone for us while you're there to don't spend that downtown Nashville price on your vehicle. WilsonCountyHyundai.com in Lebanon is where to go. All right, Jack. Magic Bucket time. Like the show. We're deep into May, right? Memorial Day weekend is on the horizon. We're deep into May. You guys got to like the show and stay strong with it. Okay, Jack, I think you went last week first, so I will go this week first. I feel like we've had this recently where did you do this last week of you had to own a bar on Broadway, what would you name it?
A couple weeks ago. Yeah. King Henry's was my answer.
That's right. That's right. All right. I will ponder.
Ponder away.
I will ponder. I think last week you had to do the change of tire steps, which you failed because
I
failed it the week before.
Soft hands.
Oh, this is a great one, Jack.
Oh, God.
You have to restyle your hair by looking at yourself on the screen like you're getting ready for a big date.
I mean, I don't have much hair to restyle, but I can go ahead and try it.
You got to do it.
It's all bedhead, too. Oh, this ain't bad. This isn't terrible. All right, how do I restyle it?
Hey, you getting ready for a big date.
I'd like to grow it more than restyle it. Let's see. Maybe just throw it all the way back. One of these, a little Mel Kiper. There's really not much you can do with my hair. So,
all right, fair enough.
Little bedhead, little nail pattern baldness.
Oh man, I don't know what I would want to name my bar. You know, for a long time, the joke in like my family, like my dad always joked about with his buddies that they wanted to open a bar and call it the other place, right? It's like,
Yeah.
you know, where you want to go, the other place. So I think I'm gonna have to go the lame way out and just call it the other place on Broadway. I think it's got like the winners and losers style to it. You know, you go to losers, you go to the other place.
Isn't that kind of what Sam said?
Sam said Phelan's,
And yours is called
the other place.
The Other Place. Ooh, I kind of like that. The Other Bar. You don't try too hard. That'll get the East Nashville crowd in. The
Now I don't
Other-
know if it'll fit. Would that fit on Broadway? I don't know.
Well, okay. Well, what would your bar's theme be? What would it look like?
I don't
Because
know.
I said,
hate
you know, the pillars.
I
I want to go Coliseum style, Roman.
hate
Roman.
I
era.
hate Broadway. The
Yeah,
other
Broadway
place.
stinks. Besides Roberts.
I just it's not my. In order to have success on Broadway, you have to play the Broadway game. So it's just going to have to be a typical live music honky tonk with 4 stories and a rooftop and a private event space on the 3rd floor. It's just going to have to be the same thing because that's how you survive on Broadway. You can't be different on Broadway. It's not going to work.
Man, I think the locals would appreciate something different.
Locals aren't going to go down there anyway.
Give me a few pool tables. Give me a floor with pool tables for God's sake on Broadway. Where's
That's
that? I
fine.
need something to do with my hands.
You can
Darts.
keep restyling your hair. With your
Yeah,
hands.
well, I need to take a shower before I do anything. So that's really the only flexibility the hair's got these days.
Yeah, I call it the other place. That's where I'd go with. It's gonna have to fit in. And that I'm just gonna have to bite the bullet on that because that's how you make money. Like you don't buy a bar on Broadway to just have it be your spot. You got to do it to bring in a ton of cash. So that's what I would have to do.
All right, you know, don't love it. I think my idea was better, but
Oh, but you were going after a very niche demographic of Titans fans. You know,
I mean, that's the pregame spot. You
might
go to
have
King Henry's, you walk right over the bridge. You go
That's
watch
fine.
Titans
You can
beat
have
the hell out of Jaguars.
you can have a great pregame spot for all 10 games a year, and then they're going to open up the new stadium and have a better one right next to it on the East Bank, and that's just going to be the failure of your King Henry bar.
Yeah. Well,
while the other place is thriving because people are like, King Henry's. Why are they talking about some old guy from France? Because they're not going to remember Derrick Henry. Let's go to the other place. Exactly. Boom.
Oh, that's a good one. That's pretty funny. You know what? We'll have to let the chat decide. The other place are King Henry's. Chime in now.
Yeah. Which bar you want to go? I'm sure the full Titans fan chat will pick to go to King Henry's right now, even though they saw him for the first time in black and purple, which is interesting. And maybe King Henry is from England. I don't know. All right, guys, that would do it for us on this Thursday morning. Make sure you hit that like button. Please like the show before you go and subscribe to all of our channels for our great content on Facebook, on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok for more. Wherever it's at, it's right there. A2ZSports.com/Nashville for all of our Titans coverage. Jack's writing some stuff up there this week. And we'll talk to you guys tomorrow on a Friday. Appreciate it as always.
Tighten up pod.